Dick, good morning to you. Thanks so much for speaking with me.
Well, good morning to you, and thank you for having me on.
Certainly. So first question for you, please. How is Alec Murdaugh watching Hulu in the prison?
He's not. And we put in our statement that he was relying on summaries or characterizations related to him by friends and family and other folks, including me.
That was going to be my next question. So you're watching that? Are you watching every episode?
No, I watched the first episode and a half, and clearly it's not based on fact. I mean, it may be based on fact, but it's not factual. And it's just like watching a Hallmark TV show that's about Christmas. I mean, it's about the horrible circumstances, but the depictions of what allegedly occurred are nowhere near what really happened. Now, I will say this though. Patricia Arquette I mean, I knew Maggie very well. I think she does an extraordinary job of portraying Maggie. And the guy playing, I forget his name, he's a British actor, playing Alec, does a great job.
Jason Clarke.
And the guy playing Randolph Murdaugh does a great job. The young actors playing Paul and Buster are okay, but I think they're caricatures of Buster and of Paul. So, I mean, again, these are people. I got to meet Paul after the boat crash. I represented him in that. So they were in this office every couple weeks, Maggie and Alec and Paul. And so, I got to see them, know them. This is not based on seeing something on television. But whoever wrote this script needs to be drug tested.
Drug tested. Why do you say that? What's so inaccurate, Dick?
Well, everything. I mean, other than, Maggie and Paul were killed, and Alec had a drug problem and stole a bunch of money. But for instance, in the television show, after the boat crash, after the bond hearing, which I'm depicted in, they allegedly go on a trip to the Bahamas, where everybody gets drunk, and they've got Alec out looking to pick up some skank, and Maggie actually looking at somebody. They never went to the Bahamas. There was never a Bahamas trip. And all of that is totally fabricated. And Alec and Maggie, I mean, again, every week or two, I see them in this office holding hands. And by the way, you don't think for this, where the rumor People magazine ran about her going to a divorce lawyer, and there was, all kinds of problems. Of course, there was no factual basis for that. And if there had been, don't you think the state would have put that in as a real motive to kill Maggie? They didn't have it because it doesn't exist. Totally fabricated.
Dick, have you spoken to Buster about his thoughts on the series? I
have not. Jim Griffin, my co-counsel on this case, has talked to Buster, and they're not watching it. But what they hear is scurrilous. So again, this is just trying to monetize misery. And again, if people understand they're not watching something that's factual, I mean, the housekeeper who fell down the stairs in this
Gloria Satterfield
version, she is carrying their bags back up the stairs from the Bahamas visit, which was after the boat wreck. She'd been dead 2 years at that point in real life. I mean, you can have literary license to move things around, I guess, but again, nothing in this that I've heard or seen, it's based on fact. It's, again, well acted, at least by the main two characters, but not true. And I guess, I mean, if you understand it's not true and it's for your entertainment, I guess it's fine. But if you're looking at this to help you understand what happened, you're wasting your time.
Dick, let's talk about the tragedy that's really at the heart of this, the murders of Maggie and Paul. At this point in time, is Alec Murdaugh still trying to proclaim his innocence?
Yes, he is, because if you look at the evidence as to the murder, not the fact he stole $12 million, if you look at the forensic evidence on the murder, which the jury, well, two reasons the jury never really considered. One was they spent 2.5 weeks hearing how he had victimized orphans and widows and paraplegics and just despicable conduct. That sort of reduced any ability to give him a fair trial. But more importantly, a judge, a former Chief Justice, had a hearing on the clerk of court, Becky Hill's interference, and found that Becky Hill had tried to convince jurors to vote guilty, that she interfered with the trial in a number of different ways. And so she fixed the jury. And so I don't think that we can say he got a fair trial. And I believe the Supreme Court will give him a new trial, the South Carolina Supreme Court, based on the testimony that Judge Toll elicited during the Becky Hill hearing.
I wanted to ask you about the status of his appeal. So for anyone wondering, where do things stand right now, Dick?
Well, it's been fully briefed. We filed our briefs. They filed their briefs. The Supreme Court has all of that now. They got it about 30 days ago. And, these things take time. There's 20-something thousand pages of transcript and exhibits that if they, are diligent in this, and they will be, they're going to want to look at. So, when will we get a hearing? If we get a hearing, when will we get a ruling? There's no way to tell. I'm hoping it proceeds quickly, but typically these things take some time.
Mm-hmm. We know that Alec Murdaugh, from the outset, has proclaimed his innocence, got on the stand, denied doing these crimes despite a mountain of evidence against him. In the prison,
what is the mountain of evidence against him? You remember now, on the night of the murders, the law enforcement there took no fingerprints, collected no DNA. There was never, their expert and our expert testified, whoever shot Paul with that shotgun would have been covered in blood and brains from head to foot. And yet 30 minutes after the time they alleged that they were murdered, that law enforcement alleges, he's at his mother's house being greeted by her housekeeper, spick and span, not a speck of blood. Not a speck of blood on the golf cart, in the car, in the shower, his clothes, no blood, all that, no guns, and no motive, to be frank with you. In addition to that, and probably the most critical piece of evidence that's been ignored, at the time Alec is cranking his vehicle at Moselle to head over to his mom's, at that exact time, Maggie's phone, found on the side of the road a half a mile away, was being thrown, based on the expert testimony, was being thrown into the woods. It came to rest at the exact time, based on the black box data from the vehicle, as he's cranking it up. Their GPS and that data shows that he had not moved. He was actually sitting in his driveway when that phone is being thrown into the woods a half a mile away. I mean, all these things, there's mountains of evidence that would indicate he's not guilty. There's no mountain of evidence that indicates he is. I mean, if you'll cite something to me other than him lying to the police about where he was, everything else, the physical evidence is consistent with his innocence.
Dick, you've been a fine advocate for him. I watched you try the case. He had fine lawyers. I said it all along. You did a great job advocating. But obviously, the jury believed that he did this. They believed all the evidence presented by the state of South Carolina. And there's a distinction.
They were fixed.
That's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to.
Right.
Is that there's a difference between someone being innocent and wrongly convicted versus someone who did 2 homicides and may not have gotten a fair trial because of potential interference from someone like a Becky Hill.
Right. Well, there is, and I'd go with option innocent, because look, one of the things you do as a defense attorney is you scrub the evidence, scrub it very thoroughly, before and during the trial, and even after, to ensure that you're approaching the case in the correct way. There was no evidence, no physical evidence that connected him to these murders. None. Not a fingerprint, not a blood spot, not DNA, nothing. Because, and let me tell you why this is. The police that arrived that night found him standing outside the house, not down at the dog pen, with a shotgun, which he told the 911 caller or the 911 officer, I'm going up to my house to get a shotgun. I don't know what's happened here. I'm scared. So when they show up, he's got a shotgun in his hand, and there's and a wife and a son are dead. I mean, 99 times out of 100, I would agree. This looks like a domestic. Looks like he did it. But because of that, they never dusted the feed room never looked for fingerprints in the feed room where Paul was killed. They never looked for DNA. The fire chief who arrived noticed there were tire tracks coming and going from the feet on the back exit, going from the dog pens, and cautioned law enforcement, preserve those. They may be critical evidence. Within 3 minutes, every cop in the county driven over them. They were gone. There was material under Maggie's fingernails. They somehow either lost it or used it in a test. There wasn't any more to test. We're not sure because they're not sure. They took Alex's shirt and tested it for blood spatter. They seemed to think there was a fine mist blood spatter, and were announcing for a year that was Paul's blood. Only during our preparation did we find a report misfiled it was attributed to a lay witness, and in there was a report from the SLED, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division lab, indicating it wasn't human blood. So, and Alec had testified he used to wear that shirt fishing, and when he caught a fish, he'd gut it, and that perhaps was fish blood. But we know one thing for certain, based on SLED. It wasn't Paul's blood or Maggie's blood or any human blood. So if we get a new trial and we try this case not based on, and he's pled guilty, by the way, to all the financial crimes.
Right.
And I don't think they're relevant. And by the way, in final argument, the state told the jury this whole thing they'd raised about getting all this financial misconduct in for motive. You don't have to consider motive. You shouldn't consider motive. So it'll be a different game. And based on the physical evidence, he should be acquitted.
Dick, you sound like you're ready to try the case again. If he gets a new trial, will you try it?
Oh, absolutely. Jim Griffin and I were talking yesterday, and we think that he will get a new trial. Now, I've been wrong before, but if he does get a new trial, we're absolutely representing him. And I talked to Alec day before yesterday, and he's enthusiastic about clearing his name.
I want to talk to you about that because I know that he's expressed his disappointment at the Hulu series, but his name was mud long before the series was even a concept because of all of his convictions for this egregious conduct. And so I'm wondering, Dick, as you sit here this morning talking with me, do you have any regrets about agreeing to represent him?
Hell no. I mean, I've got a book coming out. There it is right here. Dig Me a Grave. It's the story of a serial killer I prosecuted in 1983. Killed 14. Last one was a guy he killed on death row. He executed somebody on a contract. I've been doing this for 50 years. And I am a trial lawyer. Like John Adams was a trial lawyer, the second president of the United States that represented the British soldiers in the Boston Massacre. Abraham Lincoln represented 22 people accused of murder. I'm a lawyer. I'm an advocate. I've prosecuted. I put that guy in the electric chair. I've defended death penalty cases. I had one executed. I'm an advocate. What I'm telling you here, though, is my advocacy here is based on what I have seen, lack of and the presence of evidence. I have no regrets whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I'm just giddy about doing it again.
I can tell. I can tell. So let's ask you a couple questions before we have to let you go about Alec Murdaugh in prison. People wondering what kind of experience this is for him. What kind of prisoner is he? What can you tell us about that, Dick?
Well, he's been the perfect prisoner. He's got no disciplinaries. He does what he's told to do. He helps people because he's a lawyer. Other inmates always ask him about legal issues. Um, he has acclimated to prison life. Um, he keeps himself physically fit and reads. As you indicated earlier, he hasn't had an opportunity to watch much educational television because they're very limited. But I mean, I think he's making the best of a very bad situation. And by the way, he doesn't blame anybody for him being in prison. He understands he's in prison because he stole a lot of money from people who trusted him. And I don't think he regrets pleading guilty. And I think he understands he's paying the price for what he did.
And what about the murders? Does he not accept responsibility for committing those?
No, and he's not going to. And he shouldn't.
As a lawyer, you know that the jury has spoken, and legally he has been held responsible for those murders, even though he may personally refuse to accept it.
Well,
Dick,
I mean, and that's
go ahead,
very,
please.
I mean, look, I understand when juries speak. Trust me, I've had juries speak to me at least 600 times over the last 50 years, criminal and civil. I understand the sanctity of the jury verdict, but I've never, ever, ever had a jury that somebody tried to fix. And so in this case, I don't think you can say the jury has spoken or spoken fairly. And their testimony, I mean, one of the jurors testified that Becky leaned on her to vote for guilty, not believe Alec. And she indicated to the judge that while she voted guilty, she doesn't believe he's guilty. That's number one. Number two, in this process of the testimony taken in the hearing, Becky Hill told several people that worked with her that they testified she was writing a book about the case, wanted it to sell a bunch of copies so she could buy a lake house, and that the only way it would sell a bunch of copies is if Alec Murdaugh was convicted. She had a pecuniary interest in fixing the jury. Never heard of such a thing. I mean, it's, I guess people look at these movies and whatever and say, boy, this is a screwed up part of the country. And you know what? It is a screwed up part of the country. I mean, it is. I live in Columbia, right in the center of the capital city of South Carolina, and we're aghast at this kind of activity on the part of the clerk of court.
There should be no interference from the clerk of court. You're absolutely right, Dick. The jury process is sacrosanct, and every single defendant deserves a fair trial. That is true. And Alec Murdaugh deserved to have a fair trial. So I'll be curious to see what the ultimate decision is as to whether Justice Toll applied the correct standard in making the assessment earlier about whether or not there was that interference, which, as you know, would determine whether he gets a new trial. Tell me, in the meantime, are you visiting him in prison? Have you gone to see him since he's been in?
I think I've been to see him twice. He can talk to us by phone 2 or 3 times a week, and where he is, I guess I'm not supposed to say where he is about 3 hours from here, and extraordinarily difficult to get into. It's once you get there, it probably takes 45 minutes to go through security, and then you have just a few moments to see him. We have much more in-depth discussions by phone, and so we talk. He and and Jim and I talk to him. We talk, at least once a week.
How about
and let me say this.
Dick? Oh, go ahead.
He's
please.
not. Let me make this clear. I don't want your viewership to think he's my best friend. He's not. He's a client, but I think he's a client that didn't get justice, and that bothers me.
Understood. Dick, tell me, how about Buster? What is their relationship like now with him being imprisoned and Buster moving forward without his mother, Maggie, without his brother, Paul?
I mean, I think, you know, they have a good relationship. They talk by phone. I don't think Buster goes to the prison much. I'm really not read into how many times he's been down there. Buster got married this past summer to Brooklyn, who sat with him through the entire trial. And he'd been dating long before the murders. So he got married. He's got a job. She's a lawyer. She's got a job. I guess they're trying to do what every other married couple tries to do and get through life. And you know, I think he loves his father and he talks to his father and do anything to help his father.
Yeah, that's evident. He's very supportive of him. It's a terrible position that Buster has been put in. Very, very sad. Dick Harpootlian, thank you so much for your time, for the discussion. Please keep us posted if you have any more information about the next steps for your client, if there's any word on him receiving a new trial.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you for having me on.
Certainly. Thank you kindly. Take care.